Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Mastering Dungeons. I am your host, Sean Merwin, here with my co-host and recent hangover COVID shot patient, Teos Avadia. Teos, are you with us fully?
I am 99% with you. I have a slight sort of like, well, it feels like someone punched me in the arm. And then my head feels a little bit like there's some like cotton balls somewhere in there instead of the full cognitive load I should have. But otherwise, shot number 2 is down. I'm pretty excited. Got it yesterday. And I'm okay. I'm on my feet. I'm feeling pretty good.
All right. So, well, we all know that Teos at 99% is twice as effective as Shawn at 100%. So
that is not true. You are the leading other brand.
Yes, I am brand X. I am the saline solution to your COVID shot.
The quick picker-upper to, I don't know. But you get your second shot this week. So
I do in a couple of days. By the time this show drops, I should be lying on my floor moaning in pain.
It's all worth it. Very important. Everybody get their shots.
Yes.
I got mine at a Walmart, long story, but there's the highs of getting your second shot because you feel this immense relief that you've somehow made it through this entire pandemic and not contributed to it, and you're now going to be less contribution and also protected. And then you walk down the aisle to go where they give you the shot, and I pass 2 different people not wearing masks. Mm-hmm. And it's like, come on, we can do this, people. Come together. So everybody listening, get your shots.
Yep, I got mine in a quickie lube, so that...
That's a different thing. That's not the shot.
Okay. They told me it was a COVID shot, but hey, who knows?
Did they put you on the thing that goes up and down?
Yeah, cool. Exactly. That was the whole reason I went there.
Worth it.
Yeah. So speaking of up and down, there is news about the D&D movie. It was first delayed a year from November 19th to May 27th. Of 2021 and 2022, and now it has been delayed yet again. According to Paramount and E1, Hasbro's entertainment division, the release date is now set for March of 2023. And it's not clear if this will impact any of the other shows, movies, anything else coming out that is D&D related. But we are still, it hasn't been canceled, so we're going to call that a moral victory.
I mean, I think this is actually probably good news. I mean, it hurts a little because you're sort of getting antsy as you saw, pictures of who's on it and stuff like that. It starts feeling real. Yeah. To now hear it's delayed. But, part of this is that whole thing of they trying to get a big business going. Mm-hmm. And if nobody's going to theaters, it's a lot harder to do, right? And I don't think you want this to go like direct to video. You would love to have this be the traditional big film thing, right? Where people would flock to it, hopefully. So I get it. And the other thing is, this is one of these things where you sort of can't take too long doing it, right? Get it right. So I'm all for it.
Yep. The interesting part for me is, like Marvel tried to do with their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, having it sync up with the theatrical releases, syncing up with the television releases, obviously takes a lot of work. Yeah. And to have anything delay like that either interrupts their ability to do that or cancels it completely.
Though it's not clear, I mean, from that interview that we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's not clear whether it's more of a sort of Mandalorian thing.
Right.
There's so many stories to D&D. D&D doesn't have any single story. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily problematic. And you could probably, I mean, if the truth is, right, they say they have a script and sort of a pitch for the TV, script for the movie, pitch for the TV show. So if that's the case, you can sync them up along some lines, right? Choose an enemy of your choice, right, in the Forgotten Realms or whatever, and that's some theme that you're going to tie into and now tell your own story, right? And if one comes first or the other, it might work out just fine. In fact, releasing the TV show first, maybe that's genius, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And, there's been no publicity that has said there's any connection between them. It's just, it'd be kind of cool if there was.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm just hoping for my D&D cartoon show to be announced. That's what I've wanted for I don't know how long. Well, since the other one ended, I guess. And
right.
I keep thinking this will be the thing. It'll be that secret thing, and I want to hear like Greg Tito talk about it or something. And just
We will keep our ear to the ground in any rumors of such a thing happening.
I want to throw my birthday party and have D&D cartoon birthday plates like I could back in the 80s. That's what I want, Sean.
Is that what you want?
That's what I wanted. The little napkins that match. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, you don't want much.
Do kids still do that, or all their birthdays on YouTube? I don't know.
So for everybody who's looking for a birthday gift for Teos, you now know what he wants. And
segue this one.
Yeah, I can't segue that. If your birthday is coming up, you could get the Venture Maidens campaign guide on Kickstarter. Celeste was on the show talking about it. The Kickstarter is now officially live, and it is already funded. I think it funded in about 30 minutes or so. Yeah. It will be running for the next few weeks, so you have plenty of time to get over there and get the goodness. And if you want to know what's in the book, just go back a couple episodes and listen to the show where Celeste laid everything out for us nicely.
Yeah, and that whole heroic destiny idea was super cool. And I've already backed this because of that. And I invite everybody to listen to our show and hear about that, because that was superb stuff. I'm excited.
Yep. JVC Parry talks about creating a product called the Call from the Deep. You want to walk us through this, Teos?
Yeah, I mean, JVC Parry is known for an amazing amount of quality products on the DM's Guild, working with other collaborators, creating really cool stuff. And Call from the Deep is a beautiful adventure. And he's been going through on the blog, Josh has been reviewing the process he went through to create this compelling campaign, and how to write a good campaign for a product, and how to create a product, just how to create a great product. Mm-hmm. He has had previous pieces on planning, on research, and then he did one on art and layout, and which is the latest one. This is the fourth in the series, and it's great. Like, I'm actually dealing with this right now, so it's very helpful to try to pick up on these ideas of how you work with this. Full of great tips regarding the importance of this step, how you shouldn't overlook it, why a cover matters, things like that, how to handle layout issues and art and all that. But I also think it's worth the kind of thing that I would love more non-creators to read blogs like this, so that they can appreciate what it takes to create products like this. Like, sometimes I think we take for granted how absurdly beautiful some of the RPGs today are. And there's so much work that goes into that. In really large companies, particularly Paizo or Wizards of the Coast, can do this very easily. But for other companies, even your mid-tiers, this is a big struggle. And money-wise, it's exceedingly expensive, right? When you're paying hundreds of dollars for every single piece of art, but you don't know how much you're going to sell. That's a very tricky thing to try to figure out around a Kickstarter or around a DM's Guild release. So a really great article. I really enjoyed that.
Cool. And there's another article you wanted to bring up, Deven Rue on playing blind or visually impaired characters.
Yeah, this is another really neat post that everybody should check out. It's filled with advice on role-playing a visually impaired or blind character or non-player character. And the article goes into a lot of really good topics. The spectrum of being VI, visually impaired or blind. Really interesting things like how a visually impaired or blind person wants to sort of think about directions, left or right from their perspective, or as hours on a clock from their perspective, at 2 o'clock, at 12 o'clock. And distance, things like paces is more helpful than feet, as a sort of discussion of how far away something is. A lot of do's and don'ts for things like non-player characters, portraying the blind beggar as a tired trope that feels very insulting. The idea that blind people are poor, when really any socioeconomic strata can have a blind person and they can be doing just perfectly fine. Having their eyes look different is something that's not, scientifically necessarily the case, right? Unless there's a reason, like in D&D lore. And then some great information on sort of how differently blind people will use canes or accessibility animals, plot devices that are problematic, and then finally at the end, adapting, and particularly Deven was talking about how in their group they look at the rules of D&D and sort of change them a bit because it's an all blind or visually impaired group. So things like the rules that say like that you can see, yeah, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. All our senses can work for that. or dark vision, they don't really bother with that. And then talking about how evocative they make things by describing all of the other senses when they play. So yeah, a really neat article, and it doesn't look like I have a link in the show notes, but I'll throw it in there before we push it out.
Awesome. Well, the next bit of news involves you, Teos. We often get Teos's mini moment here on Mastering Dungeons, but you pulled out all the stops and went on to Owlbear Soup to talk at length about minis and D&D and RPGs. So what'd you cover there?
Oh, we did a tremendous geek out on minis along with Justin of Owlbear Soup. He loves minis too. And so we were like just putting really fun minis that we loved in front of the camera and trading off on our favorites. And sometimes we had the same mini, which was too cute.
Mm-hmm. And we also have a YouTube video where you can actually watch Teos and Justin geek out and see all the minis that they're talking about because they're holding it right up to the cameras.
Yeah, I do. And we did some comparisons. Like there's the saddest mini recently was there's a Yuan-Ti Anathema that used to be amazing. There's like the amazing old version, and the new one is this horribly painted, spindly little thing, whereas the other one is this massive, writhing, awesome snakes. And you're like, how did you make this one this year when you know that one existed? That's so awesome. Yeah. But then there are other cases we showed where like the new WizKid Mini is amazing and an improvement and really blows your mind. So, that you get both of it, our highs and lows there, and it was a lot of fun to be there. And then at the end of it, we made this absurd encounter together. Everybody was on the show, and we had just a blast creating that. So
cool. There's a link to that YouTube video in our show notes. And finally, the last bit of news is some new Adventures League releases. For the new Adventures League season, Plague of Ancients, Season 10, there is a new adventure by Paul Gabat, The Fallen Star. It's part 6 of the series, optimized for 7th level, covering the Tier 2, 5 through 10 level characters. If you are more interested in the Eberron campaign, the EB15 by Celeste Conowitch, Dream Eater, is now out for that Oracle of War campaign, part 15. And I wanted to note as well, you can add and supplement you can add to your Oracle of War campaign with salvage missions, which you can write your own and publish on the DM's Guild or buy them off the Guild. And a particularly interesting one is up called The Last Stand at Copper Canyon by Stacey Allan. Stacey does art and layout for the Oracle of War campaign itself, and she's also written an adventure for it. And this adventure looks amazing.
Yeah, I have this, and this is great.
Yeah,
Stacey Allan does fantastic work. I keep showing everybody the covers of these adventures. I'm like, look at how good this is.
Yep.
It looks so amazing.
And if you follow the Oracle of War campaign, you know that these salvage missions allow you to create your own base in or near the Mournlands. And so this particular adventure allows you to, or forces you to use the base that you've created, because that base becomes the center of an attack. So sweet. You get to actually put your base to good use in this adventure. So I would check that out. Last Stand at Copper Canyon, and there's a link in the show notes.
I love how Eberron can be Western, right? Like that's just one of the great things about that setting.
Yeah, you can do so much with it. And the Mournlands, I worked on the campaign up until recently, as you know. But, Will Doyle just had this vision for this campaign that was so good. And right from the start, it had that Western sort of on the frontier feel. That's perfect to take place in or around the Mournlands. And, it's gone all over Corvair since then. But it always comes back to this sort of dusty, danger-ridden frontier.
Yeah, and things like, a showdown with
right.
6 tough hombres, right?
Yeah.
That kind of idea of 6 gunslinger types that are around. And yeah, it's really neat. It's really well done. It's a cool study in, how to like do a Western themed piece. And credit important to say, like before the Mandalorian came out, right? Like
very true.
This predates it. It's easy to kind of say like, oh yeah, you mean like the Mandalorian? Well, yes, but they copied Eberron. We know that. They copied Oracle 4.
They must have caught wind of the earliest adventures and just went from there. Well, with the news out of the way, we are now going to talk about the player side of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. We're getting close to the end of our look at the character class options. W means Warlock.
Yeah.
And so let's
Warlock and then Wizard.
Yep. So let's talk about these Warlock optional features and then subclasses. For the first optional feature, you get additional Warlock spells. Spells from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, which were then republished in Tasha's. Thank you. So there are several new ones there.
A lot of the new summon spells they also get, which fits the concept. Mm-hmm. And there aren't that many that are from the player's handbook. There's a few: teleportation circle and mislead. Mm-hmm. They're fine. Yep.
Yeah. But it's also like the booming blade, green flame blade, all those usual suspects.
Yep. And it's less of an issue in terms of things like Adventures League because that +1 rule is gone. But it's more about the, I think for people who buy this book, they now get that without buying Sword Coast Adventures Guide. So it pulls it all into one place.
True story. At third level, you get a new pact boon option when you fail an ability check, you can add a D4 to the roll. You can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and then you need to finish a long rest to restore all those uses.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I like the general concept of it, of this talisman that you're carrying around, and the idea that you can sort of turn ability checks into successes and succeed a lot. You could get a pretty good amount of mileage out of that concept, I think, in a fun way.
Yep. So and so this deals with a new pact called, as Teo said, the Pact of the Talisman. And we're going to see more about that as we talk about new eldritch invocations. So what this the Pact of the Talisman is similar to like the Pact of the Chain or the Pact of the Tome. It's one of a couple of different choices that you make when you make a Warlock character.
The Warlock is such an interesting class. It's and I've had fun like late night at places like Winter Fantasy discussing it with some of the designers of D&D, and I think they all feel a little like about the Warlock because it does sort of a number of things in strange ways, right? And so you get both this pact and then you get your sort of source, your patron, right? So it's like there's these two dual pieces that fit together, which is interesting.
Yeah, and the Warlock is one of those classes that has not been around as long as the game has. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a newish attempt by the designers to make an arcane character, but not as deep into spells as the sorcerer or the wizard. Mm-hmm. And because of that lack of history, it makes them easier to do different things with, but B, harder to get a grasp of the central nugget of what makes them what they are. And so that's one of those double-edged swords that you can use nicely, but you often cut yourself on.
Yeah, and of course they're always about the Eldritch Blast, which is both a strength and a negative design-wise.
Yep. And the other thing about this Pact of the Talisman is you're actually creating a talisman that you wear, but you can give it to other people.
Yeah.
Which is sort of an interesting tact to take when you think of the Warlock or you see it play out as the rules are written. It's all about them. Generally speaking, they don't play well with others. They don't really have abilities that do anything other than blow other people up.
Yeah.
So to see an aspect of a Warlock put into play that does deal with other people and give other people abilities to do things, is both interesting and jarring a bit, I think, at least for me.
What I think could be interesting is, and this is always true of the pact, is that when you mix your pact and your patron, you can tell a neat story, right? So if your pact is something like the old, or your patron is something like, the old one, this eldritch horror, you can imagine that when someone puts on your amulet, it's got to feel gross, right? Like it's got to have a writhing feeling. Maybe it gives you sort of nightmares or visions, and you need to climb that wall. Here, just wear this. Oh, I don't want to.
Right? Yeah. No.
Path of the patron is a fiend. It's burning into your flesh is how it feels like, even though it's causing no damage. So it can be kind of neat to do that, and it's all about, I think, dressing that up.
Yep, very true. The next optional class feature is eldritch versatility, and whenever you reach a level in this class that grants the ability score improvement, you can do one of the following. You can replace a cantrip that you learned from the Pact Magic feature with a different cantrip from the Warlock spell list. You can replace the option you chose from your Pact Boon feature with another option of that feature. Or when you're 12th level or higher, replace one spell from your Mystic Arcanum feature with another Warlock spell of the same level. So it just gives you that sort of versatility as you level up.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing here is they're letting you change that Pact Boon feature. That's, pretty interesting change. So you could be, you could choose, Pact of the Talisman now if you, next time you get to a ability score level.
Yep. And now they give you, in Tasha's, several other Eldritch invocation options. So let's just go through them alphabetically. Bond of the Talisman. You must be, of course, a Pact of the Talisman featured Warlock, and you must be 12th level. Here's what it does. When someone else is wearing your talisman, you can use your action to teleport to the unoccupied space closest to them, provided the two of you are on the same plane of existence. The wearer can do the same thing using their action to teleport to you. The teleportation can be used a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and all expended uses are restored when you finish a long rest.
It's kind of cool. I mean, I always dig teleportation of this type. There were all those Fey warlocks that would teleport all over the place in 4th edition. I like that, and I like that the sort of this, that it's based on the talisman, and it further incentivizes you to give it to them, and you could swap spaces and do kind of benign transposition type swaps, and that's pretty neat. The only thing is it is 12th level, so you're getting up there to use it. But I guess that prevents it from being too much in the shenanigans category, but it's still super fun.
Yeah. And this is the first time that I've really looked at this proficiency bonus use number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, as I like that they have started to use that, because it is easier to see what the variation is going to be. You know what level you are. You know how many times you're going to be able to use that. What is rough, though, is that if you use that too much, especially at lower levels, it's not the case here, because here you need to be a 12th level Warlock to do this. But if you start using that with low levels, all you need is one level of something, and then you can use it when you get up to higher levels 5 or 6 times by just taking that one level. So that's something that, while it's good to use because it is a known quantity, you have to be careful about using it too much with multi-classing.
Yeah, it has to be like a design. It's like a design checkbox you have to do. Is this low level? Am I using proficiency bonus? Will that then be an exploit where you just dip in for getting this feature and then use it all the time?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So just something to keep in mind there. Yep.
The alternate is that what used to be here is something along the lines of equal to your intelligence bonus or equal to your charisma bonus. And then you'd have to struggle with, I was actually going to be this kind of warlock, so I didn't have a very good secondary stat, or I might not even have a primary stat because I'm multi-classed. And this just takes that away and says, well, if you're going to be Pact of the Talisman, you will do this effectively. And it doesn't matter how many levels in Warlock you have or what your ability focus is. it's going to work that way, which is in some ways a little more like what we think of fiction-wise. So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. The next Eldritch Invocation option is Eldritch Mind. You have advantage on Constitution saving throws that you make to maintain your concentration on a spell.
Yeah, kind of like Warcaster type situation. Great for the melee types. You have all these, sword packed warlocks. I would love something like this for the ranger to do it reliably.
And the druid, who every single spell it seems like is a concentration spell. So yeah, it's a good feature. It obviously duplicates Warcaster, or one of the aspects of the Warcaster. So save you a feat if that's all that you wanted from the Warcaster. Next is Far Scribe. You must be a 5th level warlock with a Pact of the Tome feature. A new page appears in your Book of Shadows. With your permission, a creature can use its action to write its name on that page, which can contain a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus. You can cast a sending spell targeting a creature whose name is on the page without using a spell slot and without using material components. So there you go. You can talk to folks. It's your contact list.
Right. Incoming text message.
Yep.
Yeah, 25 words or less is what sending lets you do. They hear it normally in their mind, and they know it's coming from you, and then they can respond. And this is interesting because it requires the target hears the message in their mind, and you get their message on the paper, which is what I do like that visual imagery, right? Like this is great way of using the tome and making like it. You can just imagine during play people sharing this, right?
Right.
It's cool.
You think, and then you read your book to find the answer.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Great flavor.
Yeah. Next is Gift of the Protectors. It's a 9th level warlock with a Pact of the Tome feature. A new page appears in your Book of Shadows. With your permission, you do the name writing thing again. You can collect the same number of names as before. And then when any creature whose name is on the page is reduced to 0 hit points and not outright killed, the creature magically drops to 1 hit point instead. Once this is triggered, no creature can benefit from it until you finish a long rest. So it's like a DNR.
Or is it a DR?
A DNR. Please, PR, please resuscitate. So the creature whose name is in your book, one of your party members, or an important NPC drops to 0 hit points. Oh, nope, they're at 1. Your book has saved their life for the moment.
Yeah. I mean, again, I love the flavor of this. Mechanically, it's cool. Everybody gets to be a half-orc. I like that mechanically you can write several names, but it helps only one. They could have easily have done it that just you choose one person to write the name, sort of like the way when you cast Death Ward, which is sort of what this is like. But the problem with that is you don't know who's going to drop, and so it might just be useless. But this way you get more utility out of it.
Right.
And I love the flavor of it because, again, if I'm Path of the Fiend, I'm writing your name in my Pact of the Tome, or Patron is Fiend, and I'm using Pact of the Tome, and I'm writing your name in my fiendish Book of Secrets. Like that's kind of maybe a little eerie to you, and maybe feels wrong. Maybe I have to sign it in your blood or something, right? Like you could do some fun role playing depending on what your group digs.
Well, it's even cooler because the creature must write its own name.
That's true. Yeah.
So you have to sign over your name to your friendly neighborhood warlock. So good luck.
He's in contact with a dark power. Yeah. So it's great stuff, right? I dig that. That's big time.
Yeah. At 9th level, I think it's okay. But as a DM who has DM'd a lot of 5th edition now, and it's just so hard as a DM to challenge high level characters that, having one more thing that you're now basically making a warlock into a cleric momentarily, but right. It's like one more thing that keeps me from dropping a character.
Though I don't mind characters going to 1 hit point because I know that they are feeling it.
Yeah.
What I mind the most is not being able to get them to 0 ever.
Okay.
Like I don't mind them popping to 1 because they know what happened. They know that the DM the monster was a threat and still is, because you just have one single hit point. And healing is only but so good. The problem is those buffers beforehand, right? When you can throw in aid plus temporary hit points, and you're just never going to get to 0. And that's the problem with the game. Like, it's not like I want to kill characters, not at all.
Oh, no.
But I do want it to feel like there are challenges and heroism, things like that. And I'm okay with going to 1 hit point. It's the getting below half your hit point level that I think some DMs really struggle with. How do I remotely challenge my party, right?
Right. Yeah. Cool. Next is Investment of the Chain Master. Not surprisingly, this is a feature for a Pact of the Chain Warlock. When you cast Find Familiar, you infuse the familiar with a measure of your eldritch power, granting the creature these benefits. It gains either a fly speed or a swim speed of 40 feet. As a bonus action, you can command the familiar to take the attack action. Its weapons are considered magical for overcoming immunity or resistance to non-magical attacks. The familiar forces a creature to make a saving throw. If it forces a saving throw, it uses the spell save DC that you have. When it takes damage, you can use your reaction to grant it resistance against that type of damage. So you're making your familiar more interesting and tougher.
Yeah, though it's not still very tough, right? Like,
right.
Even if I have like a Quasit with 7 hit points, it has resistance. So 14. I mean, it's still gonna die, and it takes my reaction to give it resistance. It's not gonna matter. Same thing with the saving throw. It uses my spell DC, but if it's a save for half, it's dead. It's not going to save it from the fireball or anything like that. At very low levels, great. But it's sort of, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I'm curious what they really wanted to go for here. You still can't really summon your familiar and have it go toe to toe. And what I see most often in play is players that find familiar want their familiar to use the help action, magically never be a target, and magically always grant somebody advantage.
Right.
To which I go, cool, next round they're going to want... what I usually do, this is how I handle it, is I will tell them that the monster just gave a really close look at their familiar. And then the next time I say, do you want to keep your familiar there? And usually that familiar retreats, because they know this monster is just going to one-shot it. And that's still true with this situation. Right. So, but it gives more options. And I think if you're using something like the owl that has flyby, now you can do that as a bonus action. So that's kind of interesting. But
yep, true. Next is Protection of the Talisman for 7th level warlocks with the Pact of the Talisman feature. When the wearer of your talisman fails a saving throw, they can add a d4 to the roll, potentially turning the save into a success. You can use that a number of times equal to that proficiency bonus, and then all expended uses are restored when you finish a long rest. So you or someone else can get a d4 on your saving throws that you failed for a few times.
Yep.
Nothing too exciting there. It's obviously useful, but not overpowered. Rebuke of the Talisman for any level warlock with the Pact of the Talisman feature. When the wearer of your talisman is hit by an attacker you can see within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to deal psychic damage to the attacker equal to your proficiency bonus and push it up to 10 feet away from the talisman's wearer. Yeah.
Cool. And you could interrupt a multi-attack that way, prevent something like swallow, grab kind of situations with that. So it could be pretty neat.
Yep. Next is Undying Servitude, which is a 5th level warlock feature for any type of warlock. You can cast Animate Dead without using a spell slot. Once you do so, you can't cast it this way until you finish a long rest. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Animate Dead. The thing with Animate Dead is they hang around a long time, and so potentially you can have multiple of them, and then you have this little horde of undead going around, especially if they're like doing it over time and building them up and then going to a combat. In this case, because you can use it without a spell slot, you can do it twice. Now you've got 2 of these zombies or whatever it is. I don't love it. They're not the strongest undead, but they are still problematic. Summoned creatures just sort of clog the lane of battle and slow things down, and I don't love it.
Yeah, previous editions have been hurt by having too much going on under PC control. And sometimes just a druid would have summoned creatures and animal companions and summoned with spells and summoned with features, and it became ridiculous. And to give everyone access to be able to do that can become an unfun part of D&D.
Yeah, and the just with the new spells that they got, there are a number of third level and higher, third, fourth, sixth level summoning spells that warlocks just got. And so this could be, I cast Animate Dead twice, then I cast Summon Undead, then I cast Summon Fiend, and now my little army goes into the next fight, and the DM just groans, and all the other players go, "Great, you're going to take your turn over the course of an hour."
Yeah, so. and in some ways that's not hyperbole. That actually does take that long at higher levels sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so those were all of those optional invocations. Now let's talk subclasses for the Warlock, the two new ones. The first is called the Fathomless, which has to do with the oceans and the deep seas. It brings to mind sort of a Dagon-like presence with lots of tentacles thrown in for good measure.
Or is it arms?
That's a good question. Well, they talk about tentacles specifically in the description. So, and as we will see,
tweet that apparently octopuses and almost any creature you think of as having tentacles, they're actually arms, scientifically speaking, which really ruins the fun of it. And then somebody said, one of the designers said, well, this is a fantasy game, so in our game, they're tentacles. I'm like, yay.
Yes.
So we're back to tentacles here.
Yes, this is not reality. This is D&D.
Tentacles.
New expanded first level spell list, some interesting spells in there that you think oceans, you think water, or you think tentacles, and you're like, okay, why is Thunderwave on there, or Gust of Wind, or Lightning Bolt, or Cone of Cold? But you can just as easily flavor them. So Thunderwave is not a wave of thunder in this case. It is a blast of water that's pushing you back, or the Gust of Wind. Yeah,
they're going with a storm, but I agree. Like the concept is not storm; it's the deep.
Right.
But okay, I guess it's the storm that drags you into the deep or something. So,
sure.
But yeah, I like your idea of reflavoring it. That's cool.
Yep. So they have to put a spell in. Not every spell fits perfectly with tentacles or oceans. So you make do with what you got. Fine with all of those. Also at first level, you get a feature called Tentacles of the Deep. So as a bonus action, you create a 10-foot long tentacle at a point you can see within 60 feet of you. It lasts for 1 minute or until you use this feature to create a different tentacle. When you create the tentacle, you can make a melee spell attack against one creature within 10 feet of it. On a hit, it takes 1d8 cold damage, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. Once you reach 10th level, the damage is 2d8. As a bonus action on your turn, you can move the tentacle up to 30 feet and repeat the attack. And you can summon the tentacle a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So here is that. First level, you get something equal to your proficiency bonus. So even one level of this is letting you do it more and more. And then you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
So the thing here is that D8 isn't a lot of damage. Warlocks have always had these sort of features that it's sort of like this little bit of damage you're adding, but you have to roll and do all this thing. And so it is sort of a little bit of baggage now. Where it becomes more meaningful is if you have like the Hex spell. Hex does a boost to any damage you make. So this would trigger Hex in addition to your normal attacks, and now it's more significant. But yeah, overall it's cool. I mean, I like that it's thematic. But it does eat up a little bit of time to do that separate attack, and yeah, we'll see the other. It's interesting to see what the genie does sort of differently, so we'll compare to that later.
Yep, and you should be noted this is a bonus action, not an action that you're using to attack. So you can still make your action with any. So it's sort of a spiritual weapon. For the warlock,
or like flaming sphere, but it also means that it then intrudes on things. Like you would not, as a warlock, now choose flaming sphere because that would use your bonus action normally.
True.
And now this is eating it up. So.
Yep. And so, since you're getting this at first level, my first thought was, I wonder if it's going to be able to grapple. Oh, good. I'm glad it's not able to grapple at first level. Let's see where we go from here. You also at first level get Gift of the Sea, which gives you a swim speed of 40 and allows you to breathe underwater. So that fits perfectly with sort of that sort of thing. And it's not overpowered unless everything that you do is a water-based adventure.
Well, and that's the thing is if you know that you're doing an aquatic campaign, this becomes an instant pick, right? This
For sure. At 6th level, you get Oceanic Soul. You're even more at home in the depths. You gain resistance to cold damage. In addition, when you are fully submerged, any creature that is also fully submerged can understand your speech and you can understand theirs. So it's interesting thematically, right? You are Aquaman. You're able to use telepathy to talk to anything that's fully submerged, which is probably usually going to be either something that you're trying to communicate with as an NPC or your own party members. And this goes back to that sort of telepathy issue that we talked about a week or two ago. For me, when we're in a situation where the characters could not be able to talk to each other, I usually try to play that out, and it usually lasts about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, especially if you're on a time schedule, that just sort of slips away. And everyone knows what everyone else is doing, thinking, even if they're miles apart or could not otherwise talk. And that's sort of the thing that this seems to be a big, oh, good, we can do that. But is it really that powerful?
No.
Not really. I mean, obviously, the resistance to cold is important.
Right, but it's also sort of kind of bizarre. Like, yeah, there's the whole thing you're saying, which is that we already sort of assume that somehow characters are communicating, and good luck stopping them. Right. And like you said, you can't keep that up for long. I haven't seen a 4-hour adventure where characters weren't talking to each other underwater.
Right.
And then the fact that, we've spoken about this previously, that D&D has often had this very controlled approach to how you can speak with other creatures. It has to be in a language that you understand or with a creature that understands. Or it doesn't say here that they must understand your language.
Right.
So it's almost like there's this weird bubbly, mumbly language thing that gets magically communicated. So it's a little weird. And so I would think that any creature, but it doesn't even say that any creature that must have a language. Like,
right.
It just says any creature that's also fully submerged can understand your speech and you can understand theirs.
Yeah.
So I guess if they can't speak, they can't say anything back, but they should be able to understand you regardless, which is sort of a funny. I would say this slipped past.
Yeah.
The right. Jeremy Crawford would be my guess. I mean, what do I know? But that would be my guess because they've been so consistent about not allowing things like this. It's very interesting to see it suddenly work.
I mean, I went right back to what I grew up with, which was the old Super Friends cartoon, where they show Aquaman riding the seahorse and then these little rings coming out of his head that showed he could telepathically control or talk to all the creatures of the sea.
Yeah.
That's what I see there. Also at 6th level, you get Guardian Coil. So your tentacles of the deep can defend you and others, interposing itself between them and harm. When you or a creature you can see takes damage while within 10 feet of the tentacle, you can use your reaction to choose one of those creatures and reduce the damage to that creature by 1d8. At 10th level, it is reduced by 2d8. And, we've talked about this. One of the knocks of 4E was every class felt the same, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like as we get more and more of these subclasses, everyone is stepping into everyone else's lane. We now have the Warlock who is a paladin, who is defending others and himself from damage. Now, he's using this tentacle, so it's not holy or, valiant.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. The idea that that what the tentacle does is reduce damage is, to me, not quite fitting with the Warlock theme. I would rather it be that maybe if it was just even once per day, and you could, as a reaction, pull an ally away. Mm-hmm. That might be interesting just once, but as a reaction, can you do? Because you can just do this all the time, right?
did not see anything that limited it when I was
Yeah.
taking my notes.
Yeah, so it's just a constant paladin-like, shield-like fighter type thing, and to me, this is not what the warlock. The warlock's icky, gross stuff, not
Right.
protecting their allies. And if it was to do so, I'd want to see it pretty limited, not constant. Something else could have gone here. Honestly, your grapple might have been better.
Yeah.
But wait for it.
Yes, wait for it. So at 10th level, you get, guess what? Grasping Tentacles. When you learn the spell Yvard's Black Tentacles. It counts as a warlock spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of spells you know. You can also cast it once without a spell slot. That's important for warlocks. And you regain the ability to do so with a long rest. When you cast the spell, your patron's magic bolsters you, granting you a number of temporary hit points equal to your warlock level. Moreover, damage can't break your concentration on this spell. This is probably my least favorite spell ever because it just slows the game down so much. And one of the few joys of being able to break concentration was that this spell could be broken. And that one line shot me right through the heart.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, it's there and you can't break concentration on it.
Well, I played a third edition ranger that would cast Entangle all the time, which was even worse, right? That was like what was it, like 60-foot radius?
Yeah,
or something
it's
completely
huge.
absurd. It was enormous, and it would, hold everybody down, and DMs hated me.
Yeah.
But it's a bit much. It's also interesting that they make it such a big deal. Like, it's one thing to offer the option, but it just demands that you use this all the time.
Right.
Because you also get temporary hit points, and you can't go wrong with the concentration. So you just know this thing's getting thrown down all the time.
Yeah. And now it doesn't say that you don't have to concentrate on it. So you still do need to concentrate on it, but damage can't break your concentration on the spell. And then my thought was, well, as a DM, many different things could break your concentration, right? They give an example of trying to concentrate aboard a ship that is being pummeled by waves. So that's technically not damage, right?
Right.
So, okay. An earthquake just happens to give me a DC 30 concentration check. But no, thematically it's perfect, right? This is exactly what this class is supposed to be. So I can't argue with that.
We used to see spells like this used all the time in 3rd edition. And what 5th edition, in 5th edition, they're less popular. And the reason is generally that they are now hard to work around other characters in the party.
True.
And Everid's is true of that too, right? Its big downfall is it affects any creature. And so this 20-foot square is just a trouble area. So sometimes your party members are also like, you use that spell? All right, I guess I can't fight that thing. I got to go after the archer or whatever. And
I mean, just to be perfectly clear, I don't want to kill characters. I want the players and their characters to win.
Yeah.
And when I don't like a spell that's too powerful, it's not because that they're too powerful. It's spells that slow things down. It's spells that make the game unfun for DMs, but also for, like you say, for other players.
And honestly, or often unwittingly, right? Where the character is in their mind imagining what is true of Everid's, which is it's this awesome visual of these tentacles swirling up and grabbing the foes. But what results in is a ton of checks having to be rolled.
Yep.
And then checks constantly being rolled against its effects, and then people having to worry about where it's situated and how to move around it. And so it just becomes this constant thing that you're dealing with. And so now you're going to see it occur, maybe twice per day. And
Yep. And the fighter and the barbarian without effective ranged weapons, they're just going to run in, right? Because they want to have fun. And then that ends up going sideways 95% of the time.
It's Everid's mosh pit.
Yep, exactly. So that was the 10th level feature. The 14th level feature is called Fathomless Plunge. You can magically open temporary conduits to watery destinations. As an action, you can teleport yourself and up to 5 other willing creatures that you can see within 30 feet of you. Amid a whirl of tentacles, you all vanish and then reappear up to 1 mile away in a body of water you've seen, pond size or larger, or within 30 feet of it, each of you appearing in an unoccupied space within 30 feet of the others. And you can use this feature. Once you use it, you can't use it again until you finished a short or a long rest.
I just Googled what size is a pond.
Yeah. So
this place that sells ponds says it's roughly 100 square feet, but I think they're in the business of selling you a pond, so it's different. But yeah, this is a weird feature. You don't have to be on water to use it, but you have to know where this pond or lake or whatever it is. This is only going to work in an aquatic campaign, right? I mean, nobody, as you're traveling to the dungeon, your DM doesn't tell you about. I mean, I guess you could, if DMs, if you have a, what's the name of the fathomless, character. Well, I guess you need to periodically give them some ponds and stuff, but it's a little bizarre. This could have worked differently. Yeah,
and the up to 1 mile away is absolutely strange because how often, as you said, are you within 1 mile of a large enough body of water,
that you saw, that you interacted with?
Or, so it's not even that, I can retreat to my watery lair. Right. This is just like, okay, you're going to a watery place.
And it's such a bizarre, like, you don't usually want to leave a dungeon, even if you're in a pickle. You want to do something like go into a portable hole. You don't want to, leave it.
Yep.
Because the bad guys will probably know you're there and do things, and so it's a very bizarre feature for your 14th level feature. I bet you could play 10 campaigns and never use this.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like.
Yep. Okay. So overall, it's not my favorite. I don't like warlocks anyway. So just from a personal perspective, not super enthused about it, but. It's got lots of flavor. It is certainly a concept that has a place in especially horror, sort of Cthulhu-y campaigns where this tentacled, watery, octopus-like being of great power.
I think I edged towards liking it. Like you said, the Warlock is problematic. I loved 4th edition Warlocks. 5th edition... I just have issues with the core. The skeleton of how they're structured is to me problematic.
Yeah.
This one it's got some hit and miss pieces, and I bet that what I would do is I would want to play this in a campaign where I could change a few features out.
Sure.
Because I really like some aspects of it. But all right, let's go to one that I really like, though.
Okay, we are going to get to the genie then. The concept, well, the name says it all. It's a powerful pact with a primordial entity. So you can choose fire, water, air, or earth when you take this subclass. We'll get to that in a moment. First, you get your expanded spell list. You can either choose or roll a die to see if you are bonded with a Jinn, an Efreet, a Marid, or a Dao, representing affinity to air, fire, water, or earth. And then the spells that you get on your expanded spell list correspond to that element.
Plus the genie type. Yeah, it's sweet. Mm-hmm. Neat concept. I like throughout this genie what they do to take one concept and make it 4. Mm-hmm. I think is nicely done. It's not taking up a huge amount of extra words to do so, and yet you get this sweet flavor so that 2 genies can be very different. That's cool.
It is cool, and it forces you to make these decisions away from the table rather than at the table. You're not going through a list of options while everyone's looking at their watch waiting for you to act. You do all of this ahead of time. Get the flavor, get the change, then you come to the table. I like that.
Yeah, and we have to note that at 9th level, your expanded spell list includes Wish, which is just, dreams do come true.
That's true. So at 1st level, in addition to that expanded spell list where you have chosen your affinity, you also gain Genie's Vessel. So your patron gifts you a magical vessel that grants you a measure of the genie's power. This is a tiny object, and you can use it as a spellcasting focus for your warlock spells. When touching the vessel, you can do the following. You can do Bottled Respite. As an action, you can magically vanish and enter your vessel, which remains in the space you left. The interior of the vessel is an extra-dimensional space in the shape of a 20-foot radius cylinder, 20 feet high, and resembles your vessel. So you're going into the genie's bottle.
Yep.
Is
That's
essentially
sweet.
what it is. And, lots of different flavorful things you can do. It can be a bottle, it can be a lamp, it can be whatever thing you can imagine. I can't say that giving a mini version of Rope Trick at first level is my favorite thing, because it's now it's only you. You can't take anyone with you at this point.
Currently, at this point. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't think it's horribly overpowered, but if you get that player who, is not in sync with everybody else, this could be a problem. Well, and you can also your vessel can be destroyed. Right. It's not a very strong, powerful thing, especially at low levels. So, somebody can break that lamp and out you come.
Yeah. This totally reminds me of Jim Dark Magic in the Acquisitions Incorporated streams, where at times he will simply retreat into his rope trick and just doesn't care what's happening to everybody else.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about with a problematic character. Yeah.
Well, what I like about it being at first level is you just know that this is a thing. And as a DM, you're going to create a relationship with this player and sort of figure this out, right, in the campaign and then with the players as well. And that's why I brought up Jim Dark Magic, because he has an understanding as a person, as a player, with the other players, that this is the kind of feeling his character has about everybody, right? And
right.
He will at times go into great heroic moves, but he's often going to do things like retreat into his vessel.
Yep. And that's a great example, because as a player, he knows that both he and his compatriots have sort of a plot immunity, right?
Yeah.
The DM may kill their character, but there's going to be more. So he can act like, this non-caring person, and the rest of the party may pay for it, but there's always an out. So that's the difference between certain DMs' campaigns, right? If you're a DM or if you're a player in a campaign with a DM, where if you die, that's it, or make a new character, where there's no plot immunity. Playing with that type of character changes dramatically your feeling about those types of players and characters. So the second thing you get is Genie's Wrath. Once during each of your turns, when you hit with an attack roll, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to your proficiency bonus. The type of damage is determined by your patron. So it's earth is bludgeoning, air is thunder, fire is fire, and
air is cold. Yeah.
Water is cold. And here again, you get your proficiency bonus at first level. So you take one level, and all your attacks by the end are doing an extra D, whatever.
Once per turn.
Once per turn. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Once per
so every attack, you're doing extra damage, even if you're a first level character. So something to be aware of there.
On the other hand, what I like, and we talked about this with the Fathomless. The Fathomless gives you this tentacle attack that's a separate attack roll, uses your bonus action, all that sort of stuff. And we have to wonder, is it worth it for the D8 roll, right? And later 2D8. Here, we're just dishing some extra damage to the target with our proficiency bonus. It ends up being a lot faster, right? So I kind of, as much as it does have that possibility of the dipping in, I just know that once a turn, this character has given me this extra little boost of damage. Yeah, I'm actually, I sort of like that better speed wise.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. The vessel's armor class is equal to your spell DC, and its hit points are equal to your warlock level plus your proficiency bonus, and it's immune to poison and psychic damage. So if somebody targets it, it's going to be hit, and if you jump inside it, it's no longer a worn item. So it can be attacked just as easily as anything else.
It's kind of surprisingly vulnerable.
Yeah,
I mean, you can be 14th level, and this thing would be 18 hit points or something. I forget what proficiency bonus is, but it's not a lot. I mean, it doesn't have 50 hit points. Right. Ooh, and it's not like hardness or anything like that. It's just literally.
Yep.
Someone could.
But you can always reconstitute it after performing an hour-long ceremony. You can do it during a short or a long rest. and so you get it back because you need it. At 6th level, you get Elemental Gift. You now have resistance to the type of damage determined by your patron's kind. In addition, as a bonus action, you can give yourself a fly speed equal to 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes, and you can also hover. And you can use this as a bonus action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses after a long rest.
This is a missed opportunity to describe how the bottom half of your body turns into swirling mist, but other than that, I think it's excellent.
Yeah. I mean,
it's also worth noting bludgeoning is an unusual resistance, right? Like,
yeah,
resistance to bludgeoning.
Yeah, that is interesting, but they're probably trying to figure out what else you could give to earth creatures. So there you go.
Yeah,
I'm totally cool with this. I don't know how earth creatures fly, but okay, I'll give you that. And it's all good. At 10th level, you get Sanctuary Vessel. Now, when you enter the vessel via bottled respite, you can choose 5 willing creatures to come with you. Now it's Rope Trick. Now it's Liamon's tiny hut. So all those things. You can eject as a bonus action any number of creatures from the vessel, and everyone is ejected if you leave or die, or if the vessel is destroyed. And then anyone, including you, who remains in the vessel for at least 10 minutes gains the benefit of finishing a short rest, and anyone can add your proficiency bonus to the number of hit points they regain if they spend any hit dice as part of that short rest.
That's pretty strong for 10th level.
That is very strong for 10th level. So, yeah.
10 minutes, a short rest, and it gains the benefits of finishing long rest. There are a lot of things that you can, or short rest, a lot of things you can do during a short rest. Mm-hmm. Not just spend hit dice, which is boosted here, and if you have a bard, which you'd want to have, now you're really regaining hit points.
Getting spell slots back as a...
Yeah, all your features, attune to magic, identify a magic item. There's a lot of stuff that you could do, and 10 minutes is not much. So this is pretty surprising. Just the reality is any DM with this in their party running at 10th level, you're going to have to make some adjustments.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
This also begs the question, what happens if I open a rope trick and a tiny hut inside the sanctuary vessel?
Yep.
Can I access my portable hall?
Yeah. It's something DMs just think about ahead of time.
I also really want to run this character and that flavors this all as like a VIP only, club as your vessel, right? And so you can eject them at will, and like that's it, party's over, and you leave, and everybody's dumped out on the ground.
Yep,
could be fun.
And at 14th level, you get Limited Wish. Used to be a spell. You entreat your patron to grant you a small wish. As an action, you can speak your desire to your genie's vessel, requesting the effect of one spell of 6th level or lower that has the casting time of 1 action. It can be from any class of spell list, and you don't need to meet the requirements for that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect as part of that action, and then you can use this feature again, but only after you finish 1d4 long rests.
It's always shocking when Wizards decides to do the whole 1d4 thing, right? Like out of nowhere, it'll be 1d4 or 1d3, and you're like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why did we suddenly do this?
I like that idea of not knowing, but then you should not know. Right? Does the player know that, after our 3rd long rest, we'll be able to do this again?
Yeah.
Because that sort of breaks the whole idea of we don't know. It's this chaotic being that may or may not help me with this thing. So it's I have trouble keeping track of things from round to round, much less how many long rests have we? It's 4 long rests until we can use this again. Are we 3 long rests in? When was our last long rest again? That's a long time to keep track of certain information.
Yeah. The other thing is that when you are high enough in proficiency bonus, you can take a long rest inside of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you could sort of shorten it by a day. So if you wanted to sort of use it again,
Right.
let's see, what do you need? You need +4. So if you're 9th level or higher, so actually once you have so 9th level or higher lets you have 8 hours worth inside of this.
Mm-hmm.
You can only take one long rest per day. That's the one thing that saves you here.
Right.
That's a core rule. But you could eat up one of these, stashed away here, and then maybe you already get your limited wish back, or you could.
Now at this point, you can sort of cast 6th level spells anyway.
Right.
Now, not any spell that you need. I would just rather have them say there is a 40% chance that your patron will grant you this.
Yeah.
Just to make it a little, or 50%, even 50%. It's sort of
these 1d4s or things like that. It's a vestige of the past where everything operated this way. You used to cast Hold Person, and you'd roll, 2d4 or something to see how many rounds it lasts.
Right.
You would cast Bless, and you would roll to see how long it lasts. There are a lot of things where durations were just surprising and variable, and now almost nothing works that way. So when it suddenly shows up, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why is this chaotic? And if it is chaotic, why is it a die roll where, like you said, we're not entirely clear what to communicate to players? Or, should the DM roll this? Who knows? And why not just make it a % chance to get it back or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I would take that kind of random roll out. I don't think it does a whole lot, unless you're really going with a chaotic themed feature in class.
Right. Yep. And you can count on someone in the group, whether the player, the DM, or the accountant of the party, to keep track of these things.
On the other hand, what's really cool about this is, man, talk about a super flexible and flavorful feature, right?
Oh, yeah.
Any 6th level or lower spell. I mean, one thing is the player's going to have to do their homework before time to go through all the lists and think about what kind of cool things should I have on my trick, available that I could pull out of nowhere. I really love the flavor of it, and I don't know, this whole theme I think is really superb.
Yeah.
Easily, one of the top picks I would think of when I'm going to do another Warlock.
My thing with the Warlock is, okay, how are they going to go through these convoluted hoops to come up with another patron? And this one made perfect sense right from the start. I'm like, okay, yes, obviously, these powerful primordial genies, perfect patrons, and perfect. I love the theme and the feel and most of the features. Yeah.
This is so perfect it could have been in the player's handbook, right? Which is
for sure. Yeah.
You almost can't say that about anything in Tasha's.
True.
Like none of them are sort of so core and so fitting a concept. They're all sort of wacky concepts, or or an also concept. This is one that we really could say is so in the lore that it could have been in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it. The Warlock in general is a weird class with a lot of features that you only get to dip in a few times. Many spells but few slots, things like that. So it's a strange class to play. I generally think it's more for advanced players, but when it comes to this genie subclass, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Now, normally we would be going into our DM side of things, but we've been going on for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to save puzzles, which is the next part of the Chapter 4 DM Dungeon Master's Tools. We'll do that next time.
Cool.
If by your leave, listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you enjoy all our shows. So thank you to our listeners, and also thank you to our patrons. We've had a few new patrons come on board recently, and so we thank you for showing us your support. If you would like to become a patron of the show, you can go to patreon.com/MMP and support not only our show, but the 2 other shows that are part of that Patreon. Teos, where can people find you on the internet?
You can grant your genie's wish and go to Twitter @AlphaStream. And I have a blog at alphastream.org where I recently put up the list or links to all of our Tasha's, sort of index of all of our Tasha's coverage. So if you're wondering, hey, when did they cover the Rogue? And I want to go straight to that episode, you can find that at alphastream.org.
I love having someone who's really on top of things and has their stuff together, because that's totally not me. So
where can we find you, Shawn?
Oh, well, you can find me and my scattered thoughts on Twitter at Shawn Merwin, or you can go to the forums at forums.misdirectedmark.com and talk to us directly. You can also follow the podcast's Twitter at MasteringDND. Mastering Dungeons is a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. So, Teos, now that we have gotten through Warlock, what are we going to do now?
Go kill some monsters with tentacles.
You got me there. I am ready for that. As long as they're not Evard's black tentacles. Yeah.
Tentacles, yeah.